We're going to welcome in Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City, as we do each and every week at this time. Talk a little high school sports. Good morning, Mike.
Hey, Sully, how are you this morning?
What's happening, man?
Oh, finally dried out a little bit from last night, and now ready to deal with the wind today, basically.
You should see the clothes I was wearing from last night. My pants are just a disaster, all muddied and wet. You missed all the fun at Holy Spirit.
Yeah, I guess I was over at Haddonfield, and the rain really fell hard. While I was traveling to the game, kind of streets a little flooded and stuff like that. But once the game started, the rain actually, stopped. So most of the Pleasantville-Haddonfield game was played in dry conditions, basically. And they had the artificial turf field, so it wasn't too bad, but still a little bit of a difficulty getting there.
I was giving you a little bit of a hard time earlier in the show. I was like, Mike's complaining about going to a turf field and sitting in the press box. Come on, man.
There was no press box at Haddonfield. If you've been to Haddonfield, the press box is about the size of a walk-in closet. So we were on the sidelines for the entire game.
Oh, really? I thought they redid that and made it like a little AT&T stadium, right?
No, they did the stadium, but the work must have been behind the scenes because it looks an awful lot like the old Haddonfield stadium to me. But great job last night by the Haddonfield football team, and also a great job by Pleasantville. I mean, the journey didn't end where Pleasantville wanted to, but there's no doubt that this group of Greyhounds, they were 0-10 as freshmen, I think 4-6 as sophomores, I think 7 wins and made the playoffs as juniors, and this year 7-3 with Ocean City still left on Thanksgiving. They win the first playoff game in school history in 15 years. So although they didn't win a championship this year, I think they have sort of revitalized, re-energized, and changed, how people think about Pleasantville football. And that might not get them a banner in a gym, but that might be more important overall than, a future championship down the road. Any future championship Pleasantville wins is going to be in part because of what this group of Pleasantville seniors did for the program.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, they got some great players. When you're talking about Muhammad Toure, Samir Jones, Elijah Glover, all the rest of those guys, Stallworth and Shakur and Walker, and what a great group of young men as well. I mean, I did a story in the summertime about Akeem Walker, senior wide receiver, who him and a couple friends, late at night on a summer night, they're just kind of hanging around. They decide to go to Wawa to get something to eat, and they find a little 5-year-old boy wandering alone on Route 9, and they say, "Hey, this isn't right." I mean, they flag down a cop, say, "Hey, get this kid home," and really could probably saved the kid's life. He could have get hit by a car on Route 9. I mean, shows you the kind of character that these kids have built at that program, and really a reflection on Coach Sacco and what he's been preaching there for the last 4 years.
Yeah, I think the thing, that when you see them is that they play hard. I mean, they play hard every down. Even last night, they played hard right to the end. I mean, they came out kind of the opposite of the first game, as I wrote my story today in PressOfAC.com and in the paper today. These teams opened up the season against each other, and Haddonfield jumped to a 20-0 lead in the first half, and Pleasantville won the second half 7-0. Well, in this first half, Friday night, Pleasantville came out firing Muhammad Toure with some big hits early in the game, and Pleasantville had a 6-0 lead after the first half, and probably with the way Pleasantville had played, especially in the first quarter, and the way they had sort of dominated the action, it probably should have been 14-0, at that point. But it was only 6-0. And then Haddonfield is just so tough. I mean, it's the second or third time I've seen them this season. They're so experienced, especially Jay Foley at quarterback. They're the defending champions. We have them number 2 in our Elite 11. They're just a veteran high school football team. And then Davis Smith, who really, we talk a lot about the great players in South Jersey, and I know Davis Smith gets some mention in that conversation, but he should get a lot more mentions. I mean, he just played great last night, returns the opening kickoff 68 yards of the third quarter, and that changes the momentum of the game right there. Then he outleaps a Pleasantville defender who's in perfect position to catch a touchdown pass, and then returns an interception 45 yards for a score. So, I mean, he just had a great second half. A great job by him, and Haddonfield moves on. The defending champions move on to a South Jersey Group 2 championship. And like I said, Pleasantville will look to finish up the season against Ocean City on Thanksgiving. And although Pleasantville obviously down after the game, I think, in a couple of weeks or, maybe this summer or spring, they'll take a look back and realize just how much they've accomplished.
Talk with Mike McGarry of the Press of Atlantic City. And, Mike, we haven't talked a whole lot about Holy Spirit this year, but, man, they were on their game last night and really a game that kind of played right into their hand. I mean, Hudson Catholic was one of those passing teams, a little bit like Ocean City. They like to pass the ball a lot, and that their offense was really neutralized by that weather. And when you get a game like that where it's torrential sideways rain throughout most of the first half, it's just, hey, give it to Elijah Gray and get out of the way.
Yeah, and what are we now? We are St. Joe. We'll play Immaculata today at 1 o'clock out at St. Joe, and if St. Joe wins, then we're a couple of weeks away from Holy War II, probably up at MetLife Stadium, I think on that first Saturday in December. Holy Spirit against St. Joe for the state non-public 2 title. That's what we thought we were going to get when before the playoffs started, and it looks like we're headed in that direction. And those 2 teams, obviously, we all know about the rivalry. We all know, about the game a couple of weeks ago. Holy Spirit jumps out to a 14-0 lead. St. Joe comes back to win 28-14. They've met a lot of times in the playoffs before. They've never played in a championship game, so that will be a fun event in a couple of weeks if St. Joe is able to get past Immaculata. And obviously St. Joe has played well now, kind of come out of their mid-season swoon. Jada Byers, he touched the ball 8 times last week and scored 6 touchdowns, so can't do much better than that. So it'll be interesting to see if we do get Holy Spirit and St. Joe in a couple of weeks.
And, Mike, probably one of the most interesting stories of the entire football playoffs is Vineland. The way they come in, they lose their starting quarterback right before the playoffs start with a broken collarbone. They plug in this kid Powell, and all of a sudden they're a pretty dynamic team, and they're going up against undefeated Williamstown tonight, I should say, at 7 o'clock. That could be the type of team where they kind of rally behind, hey, the odds are stacked against us. We got nothing to lose. Let's go let it hang out there on Saturday night and see what happens. So that could be a really interesting game.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote a column in the paper yesterday, and it's still can catch it online about, I dubbed him Crazy Dan Russo, the Vineland football coach. And I said I mean that in the nicest possible, most complimentary way, and I do mean it that way. Much like Pleasantville, Dan Russo walked into a violent situation, 5 or 6 years ago that people thought, you'd be crazy to take that job. Vineland has lost for a quarter of a century. They're never going to be a consistent winner. And, he's turned them around. Last Friday night they win the first playoff game in school history. They're 4-5 this season, but against a tough schedule. They're in the Group 5 semifinals tonight against Williamstown. They're coming off back-to-back 8-2 seasons. I mean, he's done there what, nobody envisioned. Only a crazy man would have thought you could have made Vineland, a consistent program, and that's what he's done. And I think he's been able to do it in part because he is from Vineland. He's a 1993 Vineland graduate, and I think sometimes you got to be from a town or be from a high school to sort of understand really, the rhythms of that school, the rhythm of the town, what's important to the residents, be able to talk to people. And I think and you see it, you see it in Atlantic City with Gene Allen. You see it with, other places where people turn to, people from the hometown to sort of get their programs going. And I think it's worked at Vineland. And you mentioned that game with Williamstown tonight. Williamstown undefeated, number 1 in our Elite 11. But these 2 teams played opening day, and you look at the score, Williamstown beat Vineland 24-7, but the score was 7-7 after 3 quarters. So we'll see what happens tonight out at Williamstown.
Talking with Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City. And, Mike, I got to admit, I was a non-believer in Buna for much of the season. Okay, they're 5-0, they're 6-0. Who are they really playing? Then they go out and beat a really good Pleasantville team with all those athletes. And that kind of opened your eyes. Whoa, this is a pretty good team here. And obviously, Coach Caputo does a great job with that program year in and year out. But I don't think anybody expected them to be where they're at now and playing for a chance to go to the state championship game.
Yeah, I mean, an underrated team and a still underrated team, a team with another tough task today. They go down and play Pennsgrove, the top seed in South Jersey Group 1, undefeated. When Pennsgrove went to the Group 1 finals last year, losing to Paulsboro, I think Bune is really, really good football team. I mean, Chris Dowdy at running back, if you look at his numbers, I think he's something like 99 carries, over 1,000 yards. I mean, he's had some huge games. He hasn't got the attention of a Jada Byers, Elijah Gray, guys like that, but he's had just as good a season. You know, they've got a really good fullback in Jaden Roberts. You know, Byron Spellman is a really good running back and an excellent defensive back. They've got some good guys up front. They've got an experienced quarterback in Luke Santiago who complements the running game with some timely passing. So I just think you've got a Buna team. They're well coached. They know what they want to do. It's not complicated, but they go out there and execute it. And I think you're going to try to see more of the same today. I mean, Pensgrove likes to score some points, throw the football. You're going to look to see Buna go in there, control the ball on the ground, keep that Pensgrove offense off the field, and you know, we'll see what happens down there as Buna, you know, they're trying to get to their first sectional final, I think, since 2002 when they lost on a muddy West Deptford field to West Deptford. You know, they went for 2 in the final minutes, and Andrew Mack, who's now a coach at Buna, didn't get in, although it was so muddy you couldn't see where the goal line was. And to this day, Andrew Mack insists that he got across, and I was there, and I'm not sure he's wrong. So, you know, we'll see what Buna does today if they can get back to that first South Jersey final since 2002.
Mike, we're up against the break, but before we let you go, you mentioned your Elite 11s. Where do I rank in the Sports Reporter Elite 11 South Jersey?
Boy, if we were going to do a Sully, I think you're a solid number 5.
All right, I'll take that. I'll take that.
Steady number 5, which is good because the top 4 might fluctuate, but you're Mr. Consistency.
Right, I like it. I like it.
At number
Smack
5
down in the
every
middle.
week, okay?
I'm knocking on the door of the top 4. I'll take that.
Exactly. After last night out there in the rain, we might bump you up a spot. I heard you on the sidelines through the rain, so we might put you at number 4 this
Ooh,
dude,
number 4 for the championship
effort.
week.
You know how
a lot of pressure.
You know how they say what puddles can be ankle deep? These were almost knee
Right.
deep on the sideline. It was crazy.
Well, you know, you saw that. I saw that one picture. It did look like you needed a boat to get from, you know, from the 30 to the 30. So.
Awesome. Great stuff as always, Mike. We appreciate it, man. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
All right, Sully. Thanks a lot. We'll talk to you next Saturday and see you down the road. Thanks.
You got it. Thanks, bud.